Okay, so let's get right into it. Every security team on the planet is worried about the threats they can see. But what about the ones they can't? Today, we're going to talk about a massive security blind spot that honestly exists in pretty much every organization, and it's hiding at the very foundation of your devices.
I mean, just let that sink in for a second. Imagine you find a breach. You go through your whole incident response plan, you reimage the machine, you reinstall the entire operating system from scratch, and the attacker is still there.
And you might think that's just something out of a movie, right? Nope. This is not some far off hypothetical scenario. It's happening right now. It is a persistent, almost impossible to detect threat that completely undermines everything we think we know about endpoint security. So, where on earth does a threat like this hide? Well, it's in a place most of our security tools never even look. The problem actually starts way before your operating system even thinks about booting up.
You know, it's a totally logical assumption. All our apps, our data, our antivirus, our EDR agents, they all run on the OS. So we focus our defenses there because that's where the action is. At least, that's what we thought. And that's the heart of this blind spot. See, the real starting point for any device is the BIOS. It's that fundamental bit of firmware that wakes up all the hardware and basically tells it how to load Windows or whatever OS you're running. It is the true foundation of your entire system.
And here's the kicker. That foundational layer, the very first code that runs on your machine, is basically operating in the dark. We have no visibility, no monitoring, no alerts. It is a hacker's perfect hiding place. Okay, so what makes getting compromised at this level so uniquely dangerous? Let's break down exactly why attackers see the BIOS as the ultimate prize.
It all comes down to one absolutely critical word: persistence. An attacker who gets into the BIOS has achieved a level of control that just bypasses almost every standard way we have of cleaning up a machine. Let's really spell out what this means, because it's kind of wild. The malware can survive a reboot, sure, that's pretty standard, but it can also survive a complete OS reinstall. You can literally wipe the hard drive clean, install a fresh copy of Windows, and the infection is still there. It can even survive reimaging the entire device. And since it loads before your security software, it can stay completely invisible to your antivirus and your EDR scanners. They never even know it exists.
All right, this sounds pretty bad, I know, but how do attackers even get in there? The truth is, in a lot of places, we've basically left the door wide open. Let's look at the most common issues that we see out in the real world.
It almost always comes down to these three things. First, outdated BIOS firmware. It's just like any other unpatched software. It's full of known, exploitable holes. Second, you have devices still using what's called legacy boot mode, which is an older standard that's missing a ton of modern security features. And third, having secure boot disabled. This literally turns off a critical protection that was designed for one specific reason: to stop malicious code from loading at startup. You know, the biggest challenge with any blind spot is you don't know what you don't know. So how can you possibly get a handle on a risk you can't even see? Well, the answer is you start using real-world data to at least estimate your exposure. Tools like this BIOS vulnerability calculator can start to shine a light into that darkness. You just take the number of endpoints you manage and apply data from thousands of real-world scans, and you can get a pretty solid estimate of how many of your devices might be vulnerable. So let's make this tangible. Let's walk through a quick example for, say, a mid-sized organization. They're managing just over 15,000 devices. What does their hidden risk actually look like? Boom. Right away, we see a huge number. Based on the data, nearly 3,000 devices in this fleet are probably running on outdated BIOS firmware. That's almost 3,000 open doors for an attacker. Next up, legacy boot. You've got over 1,700 devices that are likely still using this outdated standard. That means they're missing out on all the foundational security checks that modern boot processes give you. And finally, secure boot. Almost 2,300 machines probably have this critical defense mechanism just turned off. Each one of those is an open invitation for malware to load before the OS even starts. When you add it all up, the hidden risk is just staggering. Seeing numbers like these really should make you stop and think. So the next logical step is to turn that lens back on your own environment. You can start to get a feel for your own exposure right now. How many endpoints are you managing? What percentage are Windows devices? The numbers might make you a little uncomfortable, but finding them out is absolutely necessary. Look, if there is one single thing to take away from all of this, it's this simple truth. Your security posture is only as strong as its foundation. And for most organizations, that foundation is completely invisible and totally unchecked.
So I'll just leave you with this question. Do you actually know what's running on your machines before Windows boots? Because if you don't, there's a pretty good chance someone else is trying to find out.